Thank you for joining us today, and we are very excited to introduce to you our featured author, Anne-Marie Dekker. She is part of the book, Voices of the 21st Century, Women Who Influence, Inspire, and Make a Difference. This book really is an opportunity for women from around the world to come together to share their voice and their truth. This book is really a conversation starter. It's going to challenge the way you think. It's going to stir the pot, disrupt the status quo simply by breaking some new ground. It's done by women sharing and stepping into their truth, to be vulnerable and transparent. And I know this takes a lot of courage, which is why, as more of us use our voice to educate, to guide, and inspire, we must support one another by sharing and listening. So pleased to have on our show today, Anne-Marie. Welcome.
Thank you, Gail. Very happy to be here.
Great. Your story in the book is both moving and jam-packed with great life lessons. And we would love to know if you want to share with us what inspired you to share your story.
Well, Gail, what inspired me was really, actually, you mentioned in the intro about being vulnerable. And that's what inspired me when, I decided to write a chapter for this book, is I have to show people that one can be vulnerable. And it's scary. It's very scary to be vulnerable, because even though I may have told part of the story in person to others, it's actually writing it down and know that so many others are going to be sharing and reading it. That's scary. That's very scary. So it's that vulnerability to know I have to face it.
Absolutely. It really does make that difference when you start committing words to paper and know that they're published, they're out there. Now everybody knows. So diving into the story a little bit, why don't you give us a little taster of what that story is about, or what it means to you?
Well, what the story really means to me is about a relationship that I had with my late husband, and how I know it was always really very, very special. And, and ad nauseum, I would talk about this to other people about what a terrific relationship I had, but I know I had. And that is really the gist of the story. It is about grieving. It's about finding the beginning of my voice again, but it's also to pay homage to who we were as a couple. And that's really the gist of the story. It's also about coming to terms with my new landscape of having lost a husband. And it doesn't mean I came to terms and wow, this is what I'm going to be. It is a journey. It's totally a journey. Even today, after so many years, I find that it changes from day to day or from week to week. And one day I feel, okay, it's now behind me, and then suddenly it isn't. And so that's really the gist of the story, is paying homage to the relationship that I had with him. And, so that's really, it's, I don't know, it's a wonderful relationship I had. It's about really knowing each other. It's, and also what in the story is, as I tell what happened to me in this one particular instance, is really, not only understanding, because I sort of understood him, but is really where I understood the relationship that we had that was so very special.
Yeah, vulnerable is a good word because you share a very personal experience, very personal. And and some of us are listening right now, and we're, relating to you in terms of we've had a loved one, or a strong relationship. We've had someone who has also passed. What would you expect someone to really, or what do you want them to take away from your story? I mean, you put yourself out there. So what is it that you want them to take away?
That is, that's tough, what I would want them to take away. It's because everybody has their own experience. And what I probably hope that they take away from when they read this is that you're going to have moments when you think you're going to be all right and you're not. And then something happens where, you know, you think back, you look back, and you say, well, I will be all right. I will be fine. And then you're not again. And I think that's what I hope people will take away from this story, because the story is just a very small part of what everything is all about. It's just, the few words that one can only say, what touched me, that I hope when they read it, it will touch them too, in their way. Not in my way, but in their way.
Well, you're a very strong woman. You're an accomplished woman. Have lived and is living a really great life, being able to travel around the world. Was it a surprise to you that the passing of your late husband, how it affected you? Was it really a big surprise to you at how much it kind of took you down?
Yeah, it did. It is. It's, as I tell in the story, I was preparing myself for the eventuality of not having him in my life anymore, because we were told that we had X number of months in which he would live. And, first of all, to even go through that and grasp that sort of idea of that within 6 months to a year, he's not going to be here, is almost impossible to grasp. And then I would, on my time on my own, and I did a lot of thinking while driving, which is probably the most dangerous thing to do, because that's when I could really be alone with my thoughts. And I would, sort of think, okay, he's going to be gone. This is what I'm going to do. This is, everything is sort of systematically, and this is what needs to be done. But that's just strategy. That is nothing about emotions. That's nothing about the relationship. It is just putting it in your head of what you might be going through, what you need to go through to sort of survive. But then when the day comes, it's totally, it shocks you. It totally shocks you. To this day, I'm still sort of sometimes in shell shock that there's no noise anymore. There's no sharing. There's no voice coming back and telling you whether, you're doing something right, or an advice or a suggestion. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And that's the toughest. That's the toughest, because we were always so close. We worked together, and of course we lived together. And people would sort of ask us always, where does the work begin and where does the personal relationship begin? I couldn't tell you. Neither could he. But, at the end of the day, we made a pact that after 8 o'clock at night, we would never talk about finance. Because that was deadly if because that's late in the day. And, but otherwise it just, in our work, our personal life came in our personal life, our business life came in, and it just worked. Doesn't mean it always works for everybody, but for us it did. It absolutely did.
So it's a deeply emotional and personal story that you've experienced. And how is that showing up in your life today? I mean, there was gifts that were received from that time. I'm sure that, as you say, it's you've transformed into your next journey. So what are you doing now with what you've learned?
What am I doing now with what I've learned? What I've learned, wow, I hadn't thought about that, although it's there. Um, what have I learned? There's so much. There's so much. I couldn't. I guess what I have learned from this whole process is the relationship we had, and I learned not. I learned from somebody else about that there are three what they call invisible connectors in any relationship. And one is the space that you have in a relationship. Then the other one is called the bridge. And the bridge is really about how you come into their world. And the other one is the connection. And that's really the human to human connection. And I think that is what I feel that that's what I take away from my whole relationship that I had over 31 years with him. And then realizing afterwards that that is what that is all about. And that is what I try to now have with other people in other relationships. And I don't mean a male-female relationship, in any relationship, in a business relationship, in a friendship. And I think that's really important. And I think that's what has sort of taught me out of my relationship with my late husband, is the three invisible connections.
Right. Now I imagine many of your inner circle would come to you and seek advice from you as well. Probably some guidance in there. Are you, I understand that you are also doing this in some form of coaching with people, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, if you could share with us what you're doing, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So when I worked with my husband, we were in the entertainment business, and he was the one who was really in the entertainment business, and I worked with him. And then before he passed away, I with a friend created a publishing company, and we published a magazine. Out of that, after he passed away, I really didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. I did not want to do what I did before. I wanted to do something totally different. And so somebody said to me, you should become a coach. And I said, oh no, I don't think that's the right thing for me at all. And so she suggested that I look into it, and I did, and I love it. And what I learned from it is that one really has a lot to give to others, and you shouldn't keep it for yourself. One really needs to share one's experience with other people. So my coaching is what I call the narrative coaching, is really trying to help people find their narrative and tell their stories, and what is in that story. What is the nugget in there that maybe keeps them stuck. And so out of all of this, I've really learned how to help people, what I call find their new frontiers, because I'm finding new frontiers for myself too. And I think the only way you can help others is also having gone through things yourself, and as you keep going through things yourself and keep exploring.
Yeah. Now, is there a way for people to get in touch with you? You have a
Yes,
website?
yes, absolutely. My website is www.forlovescoaching.com, and four is spelled FOUR, coaching.com.
For
And
Loves Coaching.
yes, for love.
Beautiful name.
Thank
That's what
you.
it's all about. What a love story you share.
Uh,
I think it's beautiful. And, thank you for being so personal in this book. And when you talked about, in your coaching business about the storytelling, sharing those stories, that's exactly what this book is all about. And the fact that women like yourself, just being so open, vulnerable, having the courage to really step up and share it in a deep way is making a difference. And it helps change the lives of others who are reading it. So I want to really thank you for sharing yours, and thank you for being our guest today. And before we leave, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to leave with our listeners today?
wow, wisdom. What's wisdom? I think going back to what I talked about earlier about the three invisible connection, I think that's what's really important for all of us is to find that space in a relationship with the other person, to find that bridge to go into their world, and then to have that human to human connection. I think those are the things I hope I always leave everybody with, as I hope I also leave myself with that.
I love that. Human to human connection. So important. What we can do with that. All right. Well, Anne-Marie, thank you again so much for being on the show today. And to our listeners, I'd like to thank you as well for joining us and invite you again next week to join us to hear and learn from another woman sharing her voice. So, and remember, your message matters as well, because to the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Gail.